Hello and welcome to Topic Crypto. As I'm sure you already know by now, the upcoming Bitcoin hard fork that was supposed to take place on the 16th of November has now been indefinitely postponed. In other words, it's been cancelled. The fork that was to take place was called Bitcoin2X, which is bringing in the second part of the Segwit2X updates to the Bitcoin blockchain. The idea of this was to double the block size from 1 megabyte to 2 megabytes, meaning more transaction data could be fit into each block, and this should decrease the waiting times for people when they're sending transactions, and also decrease transaction fees. Segwit2X was one of many solutions put forward to answer Bitcoin's scaling debate, and it was eventually agreed upon as a compromise between a group of the largest and most powerful players in the Bitcoin community in an agreement called the New York Agreement. It was here that they decided there would be two forks taking place. The first, which will be in August of this year, to introduce Segwit, which is short for segregated witness. And this is basically about shifting certain parts of the transaction data from the main part of the Bitcoin block into an extended block. This means that the main part of the block is then bigger and can fit more transactions into it. The second fork was to take place a few months later, and this would involve doubling the block size, so again you could fit even more transactions into each block. Both of these forks were extremely contentious. The first fork, which introduced Segwit, had a lot of opposition and eventually led to the creation of Bitcoin Cash. And then after Segwit was introduced, many of the signatories of the New York Agreement decided to back out of it and said that they no longer wanted to see larger block sizes. Meanwhile, many other people in the Bitcoin community who hadn't been involved in the New York Agreement, who hadn't been consulted, and their opinions hadn't been heard, said that they had no intention of supporting it anyway. This led to a bitter dispute over the future of Bitcoin, and as the hard fork grew closer, the unease in the community grew as people didn't really know what would happen if the fork occurred. The Bitcoin2X team were adamant that their version of Bitcoin was the real one, a view that they were arguably entitled to have given that had been the future agreed upon direction of Bitcoin in the New York Agreement. And because they were so convinced that they were right in this situation, they were not going to implement replay protection. This means that anybody who had made transactions on the Bitcoin2X blockchain could have influenced the main Bitcoin blockchain as well, and transactions could have taken place on both chains. And this could have essentially destroyed the main Bitcoin blockchain and made it completely unusable. From some perspectives, this is an incredibly hostile move, and it was essentially bullying the Bitcoin community into using the Bitcoin2X chain. The issues came about because many people in the Bitcoin community didn't actually want Bitcoin2X to happen. They didn't see the need for this doubling of block size. For some people, it was an update that wasn't worthwhile enough, it didn't go far enough to solve Bitcoin's scaling problems. And for others, it was too much of a change. And there would be a whole raft of different opinions if you ask different people about their thoughts on it. Sure, there were supporters of Bitcoin2X, but they were in the minority on this one. Despite this lack of consensus, it seemed that the Bitcoin2X fork was going to take place still, and that was up until yesterday, when the Bitcoin2X team released a statement saying that they would no longer be pressing ahead with the fork. They're going to continue working on the Bitcoin2X updates in the background, and they may apply that to Bitcoin at some point in the future, or to other chains that use the Bitcoin technology that could also benefit from it. But the November 16th fork is no longer going to happen. Markets reacted rapidly to these statements, and Bitcoin initially surged in value before pulling back a little, and the altcoins all just absolutely rocketed up as the news broke. And to those of you who had been investing in the altcoins ahead of the fork, congratulations to you, you've probably made yourselves quite a bit of money from that. Bitcoin's initial price surge was because of the uncertainty in the markets fading away. People could now be confident when they invested in Bitcoin that it wasn't going to self-destruct in a few weeks' time. At the same time though, there was a lot of people investing in Bitcoin ahead of the fork because they wanted the opportunity to have these free coins be created if the hard fork had occurred. As a result of this, when they saw that the hard fork would no longer happen and they wouldn't be airdropped these new coins, they took their money out of Bitcoin and pumped it into the altcoins, inflating their prices as Bitcoin dropped. The question now becomes, what happens next? It seems likely that Bitcoin's price will probably go down in the near future. It's had a really immense rally over the last few weeks, mainly driven by people's hype and greed over getting these airdropped new coins, which is no longer going to happen. Without that catalyst to keep the price up, it's probably going to have a pullback, and I think that would be a healthy thing for Bitcoin to experience right now. The altcoins, it's hard to tell. Oftentimes they do follow Bitcoin when it has a pullback, but also at the same time they could be seeing a vast amount of investment in them now as cash that people have been holding back and putting into Bitcoin flows back into them. For the long term, however, the cancellation of this hard fork is a good thing for Bitcoin, and it should keep the price going up well into the future as confidence returns to the market and the community remains together. Whatever your perspective on the Segwit2X updates and whatever your opinion on the scaling debate, I think you have to recognise how important the Bitcoin community is, and keeping that community united under one currency and not forking it off into hundreds of different smaller ones which are all similar but very slightly different. Endless forks and chain splits and updates like this could eventually bleed the value out of Bitcoin and all of the derivative currencies made from the splits. And so it's great to see that the Segwit2X team has been magnanimous enough to put aside their own goals and their own beliefs and do what is best for the community as a whole. Bitcoin is supposed to be a decentralized thing that isn't controlled by anybody. But when you see these small parties who have so much power in the community making decisions that people don't agree with, it becomes a concern that centralization is going to happen. Yesterday's agreement is a big relief. It shows that they really are listening to what the users want. But there are big challenges ahead, and the scaling debate is far from over. At some point in the future, the community is going to need to come together and form a consensus on some solution to the scaling problem. I mean, there is the Lightning Network coming in at some point in the future, but will that actually be enough to solve Bitcoin's problems? I very much doubt that. The cancellation of Segwit2X remains bittersweet. Bitcoin's identity remains intact, and the chaos and the confusion that could have happened if the fork had occurred has been averted. But we're almost back to square one, and it's just highlighted the issues that a decentralized system is going to have in making decisions moving forwards. As Bitcoin moves forwards, as it evolves and adapts and improves so that it can scale appropriately to become a universally used currency, people are going to be unhappy with the updates that are happening. But these people have to recognize when they are in the minority, like the Segwit2X team have done, and they have to settle into the path agreed upon by the masses. Progress from here on out will be incredibly slow. I mean, it's already taken us 2 years to get to this point. But the cancellation of this fork sets a great example for the future. It sets a precedent for all the future developers to listen to what the community are saying and to do what the Bitcoin user base actually wants. And I think that, at least from the perspective of Bitcoin as a utopian libertarian ideology, that's a great thing. Thank you so much for watching this video. It's a bit different from what I normally do in the reviews and the other things, but it's such a momentous moment in Bitcoin's history that I thought I probably should make a video on this. But let me know your thoughts on all of the sort of craziness that's gone on in the comments below, and let me know what your thoughts are on how to scale Bitcoin as well. I'm always interested in hearing other people's opinions, and I'm not great at replying to comments, but I love reading them, so yeah, put them down there. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and I will see you in the next video.